2, 3, 4.
Shoo up, my sugar, shoo up, my little butterbean.
Down, diddy, down, 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 diddy, diddy, down, diddy, down, down, do I do it, down, diddy, down, down, you're so pretty, pretty, down, diddy, down, down. Ain't it funny how fun love can be? Diddy, 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 down, diddy, down, 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 diddy, diddy, down, diddy, down, down.
Welcome back to the knitting school of Norfolk. I was laid low. I fell on the street in front of my house. Now, those of you who live in Norfolk know how over-the-top bad these streets can be. And I'm usually very, very careful because I'm always afraid to fall. But I wasn't paying attention that 1 second, and so I sprained my wrist, blah, blah, blah. But the streets are terrible. So there, I said it. But, okay, what I want to do today, this is the second show. I wanted to just go back over what I did the first show, which was the casting on, the knit stitch, and I believe I showed the purl stitch and we showed the ribbing. But first, I want to tell you, if you'd like to contact me, I have a different website because I don't know what happened to the other one. Like I say, it's just a magic box as far as I'm concerned. So just email me if you'd like at ambattistone@hotmail.com. And I wanted to mention one other thing, too. You know, there are a lot of websites for knitters. Now, there's one that a lot of people, a lot of experienced knitters like, actually a lot of knitters, period, like it. It's called Ravelry, and you'll see it written down at the bottom. They'll put the graphic down for you. I find it to be kind of intimidating. It's very complicated. If you're very comfortable with the computer, you won't have any problem. For me, it's just a little bit much. So you would Google Ravelry. Oh, I think it's Ravelry.com. You can also Google Knitting Universe. The other one is yarn.com. Now, yarn.com is a place to buy yarn primarily, whereas Ravelry and the Knitting Universe are about technique and different famous knitters and books and patterns. I mean, it just goes on and on. And there's another one I've never been to called Knitty, K-N-I-T-T-Y. That's the name of it. So I just wanted to, give you, a heads up with those websites. Alrighty, so let me, I won't go into the big spiel about why it's such a great, pastime, because I figure if you're watching it, and I went into all that last time. Oh, first, let me just go back and show you again my swatch here, because that's really where you run into an awful lot of trouble with your knitting. Now, what I did with this swatch, I went from a 2 down here up to a 5, size 5 needle up here. So you can see the difference. And if I kind of fold this down, you can kind of see that this is the 5 needle. Sorry. And this is the 2. So you can see what a difference it makes. So and even if you look at this whole piece, you can see it's much wider up here than it is down here. And of course, this stockinette stitch rolls anyway. So what happens is if you've got the wrong gauge, you're going to end up with something that's too small or too big. And it actually even has to do with the kind of yarn you're using, because I ran into some trouble with a pattern, with a sweater that I got the gauge, I wasn't using the yarn they recommended, and I don't know why, but it was just huge. I don't know what happened. And things can go wrong even with an experienced knitter. So, that's why I was trying to, say to people, learn, go step by step and learn. So, all right, so this is what we did last time. I showed you casting on. Now there's a way to knit a cast on, but I don't like it because when you finish with it, when you go to knit, you've got this long thread coming in between your stitches. So you pick up the yarn like this. So you make a little loop, and you're doing this. You've got your index and your thumb, bring it around, and it goes this way and pull. And this way and pull. I think last time during the last lesson, I got a little mixed up myself and I was kind of fumbling with the yarn and I felt terrible. Okay, so lift, and there you pick up your loop, and there it tightens up. And it looks like we've got a very nice picture of this. You know, I was going to tell you that the craziest thing I ever made was back in 1969, 1970. I went to school in France. And the style then was to have a long scarf, ribbing, done in ribbing, which I showed last time, and I'll do again. But it was supposed to be so long that it just about brushed the ground. It was crazy. And I made one, and I chose a color that was totally wrong for me. I found this yarn, and I guess I just worked on it. All this whole school year I was there, or whenever I had a chance, and I went around with this ridiculous scarf. And it had to have been 10 feet long, because I was 5'6" at the time, a little shorter now. Okay, now let me just do a few more here. There we go. Now this is a size 5 needle, which I chose just because it's kind of easy to handle. And this, of course, is acrylic, which I had originally recommended people use when they're practicing because it's inexpensive, and you know it's inexpensive, and if you do end up making something you like, you can just throw it in the machine and wash it. Okay, now this is the knit stitch. So you come in here. Normally you don't do this. I just want you to see. You come in here like this. So wait a minute here. I'm going to take that back up again. And this goes around and through. Now you want to, okay, some people like to sort of throw the yarn, which means they take it like this and they do this. I think it's very slow, but as a beginner, if you feel a little more secure with that, so it comes in here in the back and then around and through, and there's your stitch. So I'm going to use my method, which I run the yarn like this, and I feel like I can control the tension a little bit better, because that's the other part of it, is that some people, when they're learning to knit, they knit too tightly. Some people knit too loosely, and as you learn, you'll find, you'll find what your comfort zone is. Now you can see here there's a little bit of a lapse here. There's a little bit of a yarn coming open here, but that's not a problem. The other method, if I remember correctly, it's much more problematic. It must have taken me, my goodness, I can't imagine how much time it must have taken me to make that ridiculous 10-foot scarf, because actually it would have to have been more than 10 feet, because I was 5'6", so 5'6" times 2 is already 11, plus whatever you put around your neck. But it was really the absolute, it was just the rage in France in 1970 to have these scarves dragging around. So and frankly, in those days, I found, it was our experience, that people, weren't very friendly to us. And if we had any way that we could sort of disguise ourselves as being French, or at least European, well, that's what we, Alrighty, now, when you continue to do this knitting, it's called the garter stitch. Now, what I showed you here, actually, okay, this stitch, this is called stockinette. This is called purl. This is the purl side, and this is the knit side. When you do all knitting, interestingly enough, it's called something else, which is called garter. And it's probably the very easiest thing you can do, because it's just knitting over and over again. So, go back again. Now, I'm hoping that if any of you, are following and you're trying to make something, I'd mentioned this last time, I would love it if you would, let me know on on the Hotmail account, the Battistone at hotmail.com, and come on and show us, or you could let me show what you made, or you can come on and show what you did, or if you have a problem, you can bring your problem in and we can work on in the show on resolving it. I hope I'm not going too fast. I'm going to do another couple of rows here, and I'm going to show you the purl stitch again. And the other thing I'd like to do with this class is, some of you are probably not complete beginners, and you might like to do something a little more advanced. So later in the show, I'm going to give you some ideas of simple things to make that maybe hadn't occurred to you. So there it is. So it's always back, or if you want to throw your yarn, and then you want to hold it because you want to get that, you want to get the tension, there. You don't want everything to sort of fall apart. That's the other reason why I like circular needles, is because they don't slip out of your hands. They don't, because if your knitting were really loose, it's conceivable that this needle could just fall out. I mean, that has happened to me. But with the circular needles, it's all attached. Now, one of the things I'd said last time was, again, talking about this acrylic yarn, was to use, if you're just learning, to use a yarn that's really easy and plain, and you won't have any trouble. Like, for example, something, well, it's like, for example, something like this is actually two yarns together. I think you can kind of see that. If my camera lady, I think she can. So there's a strand of mohair, and there's a strand of something else there that's black and what. So it's all sort of twisted. But it's actually, this wouldn't be that hard to use, but you can sort of get in there and kind of separate them. Or something like this, say, this is ribbon yarn, and it's a little bit hard to work with. It's so, it's wide and flat rather than round. But it's an awful lot of fun to work with, and it makes something that looks really nice. This was what I was going to mention. Oh, excuse me. Now, this one here, you can easily see there's two separate strands here. But this is something, you can do yourself. I mean, you can go in the store and buy, it runs into a little bit of money, but you can go into the store and buy things that you want to combine. For example, now, I like complementary colors, and this is something that's designed to be used, obviously, with another. You can't just knit with this. Well, I don't know, you could maybe do some lace work. But I just think this would look cool with this. I only have this one strand. Oops. Let me get this guy to come. Oh, here we go. I don't know, I just think this would look really neat together. And what you do when you go in the store, you kind of hold them up, and you just kind of twist them. And if you can, the other thing I do is I like to go like this and sort of see if I can get an idea of how that stitch is going to look. But unfortunately, I don't have enough of this really to do much with it, but I just thought that was a pretty cool combination. Alrighty, so let us go on to, let's do the purl. And knit one row and purl one row is stockinette, which is this that I showed you. But when you're if you're going to start making a scarf, you might want to you wouldn't want to use the stockinette because this will roll under, unless, of course, you wanted sort of a tube, a look of a tube, kind of. I don't know why you'd want that, but you might. And okay, so Okay, here's this. Okay, this is purling. And for some reason, I don't like it as well. And there shouldn't be any difference because it's just, instead of going in the back, which is the knit, there's the knit, you go in the front. And you do the same exact thing. And that's purling. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to alternate these stitches, and you'll see the stockinette come up. And then we're going to go back, and again, this really is review. Oh, it's a great shot. I have a great camera woman here. So maybe I should go a little slower and off. And keep the stitches up here. Sometimes people let them go down, and then they've got to go down here, and they go, oh, I've got to get, So you want to keep everything kind of up close. And then if you do decide you want to throw, come back and hold this so that you've got your tension. All right, so. All right, so I don't know if you can see, but you see see how small these little stitches are compared to this? I don't know if you can see that. And see this little thing in the middle here? Well, that was the other side that you knitted. But now you're going to see as we go along, you're going to see it's all close together. And here you can quickly see that this looks fair. So now I'm back knitting, but because I did a row of purl, this is going to look completely different. If some of you are really kind of interested in the whole thing about knitting, the whole culture about knitting, there's a woman, believe it or not, called the Yarn Harlot. And she's written some books. You can Google her as well. And she goes around, she gives lectures and so forth, and I assume she has her own website. But you see, harlot, why harlot? Well, I'll tell you why. Because all knitters, people who really love knitting, become very passionate about it and very acquisitive. And they all have a stash of yarn. Now, I know people, okay, so there you see stockinette coming up, because see, this is the same thing I showed you over here. See, if you can see that. There it goes. Okay, so here it is here, and, oh gosh, this is kind of right and left. I'm sorry I'm not doing a better job of, oh, okay. Maybe I'll get used to this. So all knitters have a stash. Now, I know people who fill an entire room, they say they fill an entire room with yarn. Now, I don't know whether that means it's chock-a-block, floor to ceiling, or it's just a bunch of boxes, a bunch of bags. I know people keep entire closets full of yarn. I never got to that point. I guess I was kind of afraid of things getting out of control. But so yarn harlot, meaning, just can't help yourself. You've just got to have more and more yarn and knit more and more things. Okay, so there is your purl. And I hope I'm not going too fast. I'm afraid I am. You see, and there you go. So there's garter, stockinette, right here. Oops, sorry. So the garter's here, and sometimes people, will use this like as a little border. Stockinette, and this is purl. These little ones up here. This is purl, and down here is the stockinette, because we've got that little thing in the middle. Now, I just want to, before I go to the ribbing, because ribbing is very important. I just want to show you something. People say, well, gee, I'd like to make something, and or make a gift. Well, this is all garter stitch. Now, all this is, I'm going to draw a little diagram. All this is, well, let me draw it, and I'll bring this back over and show you again. Of course, you want to decide on your gauge. Now, with something like this, it really doesn't matter, although you do want, if it's a purse, and this purse is lined, you want it to be chunky enough and stiff enough that it will hold something and not, just completely, be just too loose and flimsy. So all that really is a rectangle with at the top a flap, and I'll show you how to do that. So this would have been the flap, and then midway, this comes up like it does here, fold it up, so you see there's no seam there, fold it up and seamed. And then what I did, now this is, the reason we've got little things hanging out here is because this lining needs to be restitched, but I had tucked this down in the body, this belongs down in there. And then I just crocheted, chain stitch, these two strands, and I knotted at the top, and that's the handle. And then here, you can see, now you see this here, this was where I ended up. See, I just ran my thread down here to get it out of the way. I just pulled it through. And here, when I made my shaping, it left these sort of little spaces, and so here I just sort of pulled one, made one a little bigger, and I just put the button through here. Now when you line this, and those of you who know how to knit could easily do this. I mean, it's really, there's nothing to this. And if you're uncertain about this, I'm going to show this to you in a minute. But as far as the lining, oh dear, well, I didn't know this, didn't expect. So this was just some fabric, which I stitched. Let me take it this way. If I turn this inside out, you can see here's the seam, and I just turned it inside out, put it around the purse. So my seam is finished here. The sewn part is inside. And then I just hand stitched it, but as you can see, this is coming out. I'm sorry, I didn't realize how bad condition this was in. And so you just sort of hand stitch it. Maybe it's easier to see since it is coming out. And there are my little stitches. And you stitch it all around. And you really do need to put a liner, unless you use something, a fairly strong, sort of a tough yarn. Now this is another skein. This is that same yarn in another skein that I never did do anything with. Now if you didn't, if you wanted, again, talking about the yarn, let's say you had some yarn like this and you wanted to use it for the bag. Well, what you would do is you'd work it double. So you've got a real heavy, strong, thick strand. And you'd use a needle that's not too big so that you get something tight. Alrighty, so, all right, back to our, alrighty. Now, okay, ribbing, I'm just going to show you simple ribbing. But you can make it one by one is the tightest. And ribbing is stretchy. And it will draw in. And ribbing is used at the bottom of sweaters and at the cuffs. Now, on some patterns, they will tell you to do your ribbing and then add stitches on for the body. So you get a little bit of a, here, let me show you. I may as well show again while I'm here. Well, I have this at my disposal. So, as I showed you last time in a book, but I think it was kind of small and maybe you couldn't see it. You know, a lot of sweaters are just simply a rectangle. Now you can shape the armhole by binding off and bringing it in here. Or you can work with just a drop shoulder and just bring your sleeve off this way. So that's two ways to do it. It's very, very easy. Some people will shape. You can shape the armhole, but then you've got to shape the sleeve. So as far as the ribbing goes, sometimes they'll tell you, so the ribbing would be down here, around the collar, around the cuffs. Now, in some patterns, they will tell you to do a certain number of ribbing stitches. When you get here, it's X plus something else. It may be another inch. Let's say you're working 5 stitches to the inch. So they might say X plus, say, 5 in this case, or however many. And the more you add on here to the body of the sweater, the more this is going to kind of be a little bit blousy. What some people do is they put the same number of stitches. They don't bother with this, but they use a smaller needle. And they use a larger needle here. And that will give you the same effect. That will draw this in and give you a little bit of a looseness or a little blousiness up here. So, ribbing. Now, you can do 1 by 1, which is what most people do. And you're going to see that it does pull in the work. So I've got a knit. You know how to do that. And then I bring this around in the front and I purl. And I take it back and I knit and I bring it around and I purl. So I'll use the throwing knit, purl. Now if you can see here, this is why I don't like that throwing, because when you're doing ribbing, you see, then you have to kind of grab it. You see, okay, so I'm going to throw my yarn this way and knit, but now I've got to hold this to bring it back around, and I think it takes up time. So if you can learn to sort of hold your yarn like this, I think you'll find it really lets you go a lot faster. And I feel like I have more control this way too. So I do, if any of you out there are watching and you have any, complaints or suggestions, or if you think I'm going too fast, please let me know. Now, here's another little thing. Now, I'm ending up with a purl stitch. So when you look at this, so actually when you look, you'll see the knit, you'll see the knit and the purl. And I know they call it a purl because it's like a little round ball maybe. And the knit and the purl. So you can pretty easily see what you're doing with this. Now, when you do go ahead and some people like to have it end with either 2 purls or 2 knits, which I didn't do here because of the number I happened to put on. So I'm back here. Now you don't see it quite as clearly here, but we'll go back and do another row of the. Now, oh dear, oops, okay. Hang on, sorry about that. There we go. All right, so now I'm going to do a knit over a knit and a purl over a purl. So there's my purl, and I can see it really clearly, so I'm going to do my purl stitch, and now my knit. Now, you can do knit 2, purl 2. You won't get as much stretchiness. It'll be a little bit looser. You can do knit 3, purl 3. There's also something called broken rib, which is nice in scarves. And, those of you that are starting out, most people start out and make a scarf, but, and that's okay. But there are other things that you can do, like this little purse, or you can make a shawl. And I think I showed you one last time, which was just pretty much a rectangle. And with a button, and then a way to sort of clasp it. there it is, pretty clear. Okay. So we'll do one more row. So we're going to take a break shortly. I'm going to finish this row of ribbing. But I really do hope some of you will let me know how you're doing. I'm also hoping for my next show next week, I'm going to see if I can get another knitter to come on and talk for a little while about her work. There's one person I'm thinking of who lives here in Norfolk, but I think she might be unwilling to be on the TV, but we'll see. I've got a couple of other people I can put the arm on, as they say. So I don't know if you can see this yet, but it sort of pulls in, is what it does. It pulls in, and it's much stretchier than this is. So so we'll be right back. We're just going to take a break here, and we'll be back with more knitting at the knitting school.
Hey honey, shoo-up, shoo-ah. Look, see, shoo-up, shoo-ah. It's funny, shoo-up, wop, how silly love can be. Down, diddy, down, da, down, da, down, diddy, diddy, down, diddy, down, da, down, do-ah, do-ah, down, diddy, down, da, down. So pretty, pretty, down, diddy, down, da, down.
Good, you stayed. You didn't leave. Good. Okay, in the meantime, I made myself another little, well, it's not really a swatch, but I wanted to show you how to make this little flap here, how to do this shaping. And what I've got now, I have a different, and actually this is a stray. I did not like working with this yarn. This is bamboo. And I'll tell you in a minute why I didn't like it. But just another thing I wanted to review. So here's the label, and reasons to knit with bamboo, blah, blah, blah. Now, there's the color. Excuse me. Okay, here's the color, and here's the dye lot. Now, it's not enough. On a cheap yarn, they'll just do a color. They won't bother with this business of which dye lot is which, because it's just too expensive to be bothering with that extra information. But when you see this, you need to get the same dye lot, not just the color. Now, if it so happens there's something that you really want to work with, and you can't get the same dye lot, this is a little trick. And actually, I don't know if I can show you today. I can show you next time. It's really not that complicated. If you get something close to it, and you can hold the skeins up and look at it. So what you do is you take half in the one dye lot, half in the other, and you've got two balls of yarn going, two skeins. So you've got a skein here, like this, conventional. So here's a skein here. So I'll just show you. I'll knit across. I can actually kind of show this to you now. So you knit across, and I'm doing a garter stitch here, which is what that little purse is made of. So all knitting. See, the reason I didn't like this was that this twist on this is very loose. I think you can see it here. It's a very loose twist. And what happens is it's very easy to go into those strands. And so, and I don't know. I had a problem with the pattern. It felt very flimsy to me, so it was just like kind of a big loss. And then, sometimes that happens, and it doesn't mean you should give up. Not at all. It just means that you've learned something. And, each project you make, you really, if you're serious about knitting, you should try and do something different each time, so that you've learned. Maybe one time you might want something with a collar or a pocket, or some kind of a cuff, or, you'll see as you go along, as you feel more comfortable. All right, so now I've gone through here with my this is my one dye lot. So now, I mean, I'm just gonna grab this. Oh gosh, but I think I need, well, see if I can, well, no, I'll take this, because, so let's just assume this is the same yarn in a different dye lot. I mean, obviously it's not, it's completely different. So now I go here, and here I am with my circular needles again, and now I go in this way, I put this in here. Now, you might want to, sometimes I like to kind of knot it, like maybe do an overhand knot, but just for the time being, we'll just hold it. And now I go across. Now and that's all you do. And then you've mixed the two dye lots. Of course, I mean, this just sort of looks ridiculous, but just so you see that you're working with one skein here, and this one here. When I get across, I'll go back, and then I'll pick this back up again. So I'm going to go across and back, and then this one across and back. All right, so let me take this out, and this is an easy thing to do too. When you run into mistakes, you just merely, oops, there we go. When I used to teach the girls at school to knit after school, I would sometimes take their knitting and kind of, pull it apart and show them how they could get back on track. All right. So we're talking about this. Okay. And now there's actually two ways to do this. Let me start with a simpler way. When you want to bind, this is called binding off. So you knit, and you take this stitch here, and you bring it over, and you pull it through. Now that's binding off, and I'll do two of them. Now that doesn't give you, see here's here's this yarn acting up, which is what I explained to you. So this is another thing to kind of look out for if it's a loosely wound strand. And I bring it through, and I've bound off two stitches right there. Very good. Oops, I'm sorry. And you can look on the, see that there they are. You can see them. That's good. Okay, so I'm going to go across. And actually, even if you were to use this method for shaping the top of that little purse, you could still, when you get to the very top, you find that knitting is very forgiving. I mean, in a sense, much more so than sewing, in the sense that you can kind of reach into like a little space and open it up and, kind of pull the other strands around and make a little. Oh, now see there you see there it is again. See, so I wasn't careful about going in there and getting the whole strand. Okay. All right, so now on this side, so there you are. There's your garter stitch. Here it is again. Okay. And some people make entire sweaters out of this. The thing about the garter stitch is, and you don't see, this is a yarn that doesn't stretch at all. This is like, well, it's nylon, I think. Well, let's see, that's not going to tell me. So, this is all. I suspect this is some kind of of nylon. There's the, by the way, there's the color, and here they're using their lots, their dye lot is by letters. 50 grams, 50 meters, and here's all the instructions here, the little symbols. Oh, here it is. I'm sorry, cotton and rayon. Cotton and rayon. I didn't even see this over here. I know it's all the stress of being a TV personality, I guess, is the makes you. All right. So here I'm going to do another bind off. So I've got one, and I take this one. You know, maybe this wasn't the best yarn to demonstrate. So I've got this one here, over, and pull the other one through. And there it is. Okay, we'll do another one. Okay, there it is. Now, this is what you do when you're making a sweater and you're shaping the armhole. When they say bind off, this is what you do. This is also what you do when you're shaping your collar, your neckline. All right, so I'm just going to take, now, there was another thing I did want to tell you. Dee's Nimble Needles, and I don't shop there very much, but she does have a tremendous selection. Dee's Nimble Needles in the center of Walpole is having the spring sale. So I don't know whether she's selling the winter yarns or she's selling the summer yarns now, but she does have a sale going on. And I suspect her prices are fair. The place is kind of chaotic. So, you know, when you go in there, don't be, if you're not used to yarn stores, don't be overwhelmed. And there's always somebody there to help you. But there is a tremendous, now see, this is something, see this little thing here? Now this is just like a little minor point, but I'm gonna replace that back where it belongs. And so you might want to go over there and have a look. Yarn.com, which I mentioned earlier, is out in Northampton, and I talked about, all right, now, before I get into that, okay, so here you can see my little bind off here. So what I could do, if I were making that purse, I could just do 2, 2, 2, 2, and I would have a little stair-step effect. But I'm going to show you this other. Now, on this one, I'm making an extra stitch here. So I'm going to knit. This is called a yarn over. Goes around once. Now this is this. This is, excuse me, I'm sorry. This is this. It looks like I did, you know, it looks like I did 2 stitches. So let me do that. Okay. So I'm going to knit 1. I'm going to knit 2. I'm going to do a yarn over, and I'm going to knit 2 together. So I made 1 and I took 1 away. Now, when you go back over, you will knit this stitch as if it were a real stitch. And that's actually the basis of lace stitching, which is yarn over and knit 2 together. I have never really done lace stitching. I'm intimidated by it. It doesn't mean anybody else should be. It's just that if you drop a stitch, in my opinion, you're kind of done for. But I have plenty of friends that do it, and but you do need to be a really good knitter that's not going to drop a stitch. Let's put it that way. All right, now we'll go over here. Okay, now I'm back here. I turn. Okay, so there's my little hole that I made, and this is where, if you can see right in here, there's where those 2 stitches went. Great job, Mrs. Camera Lady. Great job. Ms. Sorry. I'm not hearing any laughter, so I guess I'd better just move on. All right, so I have knit 2 stitches. There I go. Yarn over. Now, interestingly enough, when you're purling, which we're not, but when you're purling, you do it this way because you're going to go in like this. I'm sorry. There it goes. Okay. See, but we're not purling. So we're knitting, so we're going to take it around this way. Now it's in the back. And let me go across, and I'll show you the next row. And you'll see how it works in. Talking about yarn.com, I think I'd mentioned last time, it's in Northampton, and sometimes people go out there as like a road trip, and they have a system there where the more you buy, if you buy a certain amount and you go beyond that, they give you a deeper discount. But they also have a back room of yarn that's discontinued or that they don't sell anymore or whatever. Okay, now here's that yarn over. So I'm going to knit that just like it was a stitch. There's the little hole. Knit and knit. Oops. Okay. And there's that little pesky little strand there, so I get rid of that. Okay. So there's that. Okay. So now you're going to say, well, gee, how is that going to make an angle? Well, I'll show you. So I'm going to now knit 2. And I'm going to yarn over. I'm going to knit 2 together again. And that will eventually, and you know what I'm going to do? Next time, for the next class, I'm going to make a whole one of these and show us. I don't think I'm giving you too good of an example here. It's a little bit hard to see with this yarn. So I'm going to continue over here. And I'm going to show you a cable stitch. Those of you that know a little bit about knitting. Oh, see there. No, so there's the yarn over. So I just go right in and knit it like a stitch. Okay. See, with what you have to always look for is everything caught up? So if you make a mistake, you need to go back and look and say, is everything caught? Is everything being secured? And as you can see here, even though I've left, the hole is here. Oops, uh-oh. Oh dear. Well, see, now I wasn't careful and that's what happened. I almost lost that little stitch, but I got it back. Okay. So, okay. And the hole is right in, wait a minute, excuse me, let me go back. I think I did something wrong here. Let me go back. Yeah, there it is. The hole is right, yeah, the hole is there. Knit and knit. This was probably not a good type of yarn to show this with. Okay, so I'm going to go back. Let me go to this other yarn here. Now, when you probably wouldn't want to do this. I'll go back to the other side here. I'll do another row of knitting here. Cables are what you see in the Irish knits, and they can be extremely complicated or just very simple. I'm going to show you a simple one as soon as I get over here. And one of the things that you need to use purl, and you need to use stockinette with a cable. And the cable is like a little twisted, it's like a little twisted section. I'm going to show you something on, I'm going to draw it for you. Okay, so that takes me, okay. So if you've got your knitting, you've got your stockinette. So it's your stockinette in here. This, you know, this is this. Okay. Then what you do is, so you've got your stockinette. And then you do some purl stitches. And you do the purl stitches to set off the cable from the stockinette. And I probably should have brought something that I had done to show you. I'm sorry I didn't do that. I didn't think. Okay, so purl, stockinette, kind of a funny old word. And then what happens down here, so we're going to, and we'll also have the purl on the other side. And in here, there's more stockinette. And what happens is, let's see, how many did I make here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Well, I made an odd number. Okay, so we'll just, okay. What you do is you take these 4 and you put them over these 4. So what happens is you do this. And these go underneath. And you sometimes there's a little, like a sort of a little opening here. And that's what you do. Now, I don't know if we might not have time to get into this, to this cable knit today, because we're kind of running out of time. But let me just show you, at least let me show you the cable needle. What happens is, I can do a little bit of this for you. And next time we'll have more time and I can start with this. So I would make a few purl stitches. And don't worry about this being, you know, sort of a slapdash demonstration here, because I'll show you more next time. So I would go a few purl stitches. And I'm going to do 6 knit stitches. And then I've got my purl the rest of the way. See, there's a way to go back without having to go to the end of the row, and that's something I don't know how to do. And never was really something I wanted to know until now. All right, so. Now if you look back here, see now, when I come back here, I've got to do purling. So let me get back here quickly. And maybe we have enough time to do this. Let's see here. Okay, so now I'm going to purl my purl stitches. And really, this is really very simple. It looks hard to do a basic cable. It is not difficult. It's just a matter of, I guess, dexterity. Okay, now this. Okay, so here I am. I've got my purl. Let's just imagine we're just working with this. So I've got my purl stitches. I'm going to work my purl over to where my cable's going to be. All right, now I say, okay, I'm going to put 3 of these stitches back. I'm going to take this tool here, and actually, to tell you the truth, I like to use just the regular knitting pins. The reason for this is, well, you'll see. So I'm going to pick these up here, 1, 2, and 3. And I'm going to put it in behind. There it goes. And now I knit the next 3, and that's going to make my twist. So I knit these 3 here. Okay, there they are. They're twisted over. And I take this needle in the back. Well, I put this in a little, I guess I put this in backwards is what I did. That's why I'm not crazy about using these tools, because you can get a little bit twisted up here. Okay, let me see. Okay, here we go. I bring it up this way here. And this is a little bit big for the needle I'm using. Ideally, should be the same diameter, but it really doesn't make a whole lot of difference. And now I knit these 3 from here. Now I'm back to 6 knit stitches. And you say, well, gee, what about that other needle flopping? That's just how it works. And if you can see, it's twisted. Now, as you continue to knit up, that will kind of flatten out, but you'll see that you have made your twist. Now, next time I'll bring some examples of some of these cables, but this is the simplest cable. And when we get to the back, okay, I'm just kind of doing this quickly so I can just at least finish this little demonstration before we run out of time. Oops. Wait a minute. Okay, right. I thought I... Okay, now I'm coming up. Now I have to purl, and you say, well, gosh, everything's all twisted. Well, you just purl it as it comes. So I'm purling. 1. Here's the next one. 2. 3. Now that was the twisted part. See, 4, 5, 6. Now I knit the knit stitches. And you're going to see on the other side, see this? What happened here and here is this little, and now what you do, and remember I told you there would be like a little hole in here, and that's just the way cables are. So now you can just knit along, and you go up, and you can do the next twist whenever you want, but on your pattern they'll tell you how many rows, how many rows you knit before you do another twist. So here I am. Now I'm going to knit the knit stitches. Okay, there's 6. And my purl. And the purl is always on the outside to form a contrast with the smoothness of the stockinette, and so that you set off the cable. So I don't know if I can do any more lessons, any more demonstrations today, because I'm afraid I don't have enough time. The time goes so fast. So thank you so much again. ambattistone@hotmail.com. Dee's Nimble Needles in the center of Walpole, spring sale. They're going to put up on the bottom, on the graphics, the websites that I mentioned. And we'll see you next time. And thank you for being my students again at the Norfolk Knitting School. See you next time.
So pretty, down. Shoo up, shoo up,
My darling,
shoo up,
my bee.
shoo up,
My sugar,
shoo up,
my little butter bean.
down, down, diddy, down, do I do it, down, so pretty, down. Ain't it funny how fun